Welcome to this explainer. I am so incredibly thrilled to have you here today because we're jumping right in to completely flip the script on everything you might think you know about the history of warfare. We usually picture history's biggest conflicts as these straightforward, massive clashes, right? Where the army with the biggest guns or the most troops just automatically wins the day. But history is rarely that simple, and honestly, it's a whole lot more fascinating when we take a closer look. Today, we're focusing on the unusual, the unexpected, and the strategic masterstrokes that literally change the course of human events forever.
So, to get us started, I want you to really think about this for a second. What do a 9-ounce pigeon and an unarmed medic have in common? On the surface, absolutely nothing. One is a tiny little bird, and the other is a human being walking straight into a combat zone without a rifle. Yet, if you look at the records of modern conflict, both of these unlikely participants completely shattered conventional expectations of how wars are fought, and more importantly, how victories are achieved.
Okay, let's dive into this. They both changed history without firing a single conventional shot. Historical records highlight the absolutely heroic contributions of war pigeons, these 9-ounce heroes that delivered life-saving messages across active battlefields when literally every other form of communication had failed. And then there's the incredible story of a medic who fought through a brutal war entirely without a weapon. He relied on sheer courage and a relentless drive to save lives rather than take them. They totally subverted all expectations. But this idea of subverting expectations, it isn't just about individual heroes. It's actually a common thread running through thousands of years of military strategy.
Ancient tactical masterclasses. Brains over brawn.
Time and time again in ancient history, we see that strategy and agility played a much bigger role in shaping empires than just sheer brute force or overwhelming numbers. And this matchup brilliantly illustrates exactly what I mean. If we compare two of the most legendary military systems of antiquity, the Roman legion and the Macedonian phalanx, we see a classic showdown of flexibility versus rigidity. The Macedonian phalanx was this terrifying moving wall of men. They used rigid, tightly packed ranks bristling with massive long spears. From the front, they were virtually unstoppable, but their critical weakness? They were incredibly vulnerable on the flanks and the rear. The Roman legion, on the other hand, functioned as highly flexible, adaptive units armed with short swords and throwing spears. Now sure, the Romans had their own vulnerabilities, like the heavy cavalry, but their ability to maneuver, adapt to rough terrain, and outflank the rigid phalanx prove that tactical flexibility can entirely dismantle a traditional, inflexible formation.
We see this exact principle of brains over brawn applied brilliantly centuries later by the Byzantine commander Belisarius. Picture this, it's 530 AD at the Battle of Dara. Belisarius finds his forces vastly outnumbered by a massive Persian army. A direct, head-on clash would have been pure suicide. So what did he do? He engineered an absolute tactical masterclass. He dug a complex, entirely unexpected network of trenches, basically a physical maze, right across the battlefield. And this wasn't just for defense. It was a psychological and physical labyrinth designed specifically to break up the Persian cavalry charges and funnel the enemy straight into carefully laid strategic traps. By using the terrain and totally subverting the established rules of engagement, Belisarius secured a legendary victory, stopping a massive horde dead in its tracks.
The crater at Petersburg, a colossal modern blunder.
Now, history is also completely full of moments where grand, out-of-the-box strategies go horribly wrong. Before we get to the main event of this specific blunder during the American Civil War, let's set the stage by contrasting these leadership styles. On one side, we have ancient genius. You've got commanders like Hannibal and Belisarius, who used the very ground they walked on to perfectly deceive and trap their enemies. But on the other side, we have the modern blunders of the American Civil War. You have commanders like George B. McClellan, widely noted by historians as simply the wrong man for the job because of his notorious inaction and hesitation. And then you have Major General Ambrose Burnside, who attempted a highly ambitious, technologically advanced plan at Petersburg, Virginia, that turned into a complete and utter disaster.
Now, what's really interesting about this event is how quickly a massive tactical advantage can just dissolve into utter confusion. Let's walk through the events of July 30, 1864 during the Siege of Petersburg. To break a grueling stalemate, Union forces actually came up with a pretty wild plan. Dig a tunnel under the Confederate defenses and detonate a mine full of explosives. In the morning, the detonation goes off perfectly. The explosion blows a massive hole in the Confederate line and creates a giant crater. The Union has the ultimate element of surprise. But right here is where the execution completely falls apart. Instead of advancing around the rim of the crater to secure the breach, the charging Union troops mistakenly poured directly into the crater itself. They trapped themselves in a massive hole of their own making. This sheer confusion gave the Confederate forces the precious time they needed to recover, reform their lines, and ruthlessly repulse the trapped attackers.
So why does this one failed attack matter so much in the grand scheme of things? Well, it's because of this number, 8. That colossal blunder resulted in 8 more months of horrific, grueling trench warfare for both sides. The Union had the technological advantage, they had the explosive power, and they achieved total surprise. But poor execution and a complete breakdown in human decision-making just threw it all away. It really proves that no matter how much military technology advances, human psychology and behavior remain the ultimate deciding factors on the battlefield.
The first carrier clash, warfare over the horizon. Speaking of massive technological leaps, let's fast forward into the 20th century to World War II. For thousands of years, literally right up until early 1942, naval warfare was defined by ship-to-ship visual combat. Think of galleons firing broadsides, or early dreadnoughts exchanging cannon fire where they could physically see the enemy vessels right there in their direct line of sight. But between May 4th and May 8th, 1942, the Battle of the Coral Sea changed military history forever. This was the dawn of aircraft carriers launching planes to fight enemy fleets that were miles and miles away, completely over the horizon.
And this is the mind-blowing historical fact that you really need to take away from this explainer. During the Battle of the Coral Sea, the opposing ships never actually saw each other, not once. For the very first time in human history, massive naval fleets waged a decisive, world-altering battle entirely via aircraft. It was a complete paradigm shift. The giant cannons and thick armor of traditional battleships were suddenly taking a back seat to the incredible reach and striking power of naval aviation.
Echoes of the battlefield, the human element.
So the crucial point is, when we pull all these threads together, from Belisarius digging trenches in the ancient desert to the disastrous crater at Petersburg, all the way to the sprawling over-the-horizon carrier duels of the Coral Sea, the lessons become super clear. Across all these diverse eras, we see that innovation consistently beats brute force. We see that having a fleeting advantage, like, say, blowing a giant hole in the enemy line, means absolutely nothing if you don't have the flawless execution to back it up. We see that subverting expectations, whether you're a 9-ounce pigeon delivering a crucial message or a Byzantine general digging surprise trenches, is the ultimate weapon. Ultimately, it's the ingenuity and psychology of the human spirit that outweigh the mere tools of destruction.
Which brings us to this incredibly powerful summarizing thought. Technology changes, but the human element remains the deciding factor in the turning points of history. We study these unusual wars, these forgotten battles, and famous commanders, not to glorify the violence itself, but to truly understand the historical context and the enduring lessons of these events. Because whether a soldier is holding a short sword, lighting a massive explosive fuse, or launching an aircraft from a floating runway, it is their decision-making, their courage, and their adaptability that ultimately write the history books.
And I want to leave you with this provocative thought to chew on as we wrap up today's explainer. As we move into this unpredictable new age of digital, algorithmic, and automated warfare, how will these ancient strategies of deception, flexibility, and the human element apply to the conflicts of the future? Will algorithms completely replace the tactical genius of someone like Belisarius, or will human psychology always be the ultimate vulnerability, just like it was at the crater? It's definitely something to ponder. Thank you so much for joining me today, and keep questioning the history you think you know.